A very warm welcome to this very last session of this very dense program this afternoon. I'm well aware that I'm the last, so to speak, roadblock between you and a nice apéro, a networking session, and I'm even more so happy to see that some of you stay seated and are interested in the upcoming roundtable. Yeah, here we have it. We want to focus in this short block of 20-25 or so minutes on the question what it means to start up in the microbiomes field, and especially in the microbiomes field here in Switzerland. During the last, during all of the afternoon, we have actually focused on very exciting research results, both from academia, startups, and also larger companies. And in this section, we want to shift gears a bit and understand more on a personal side who are some of the entrepreneurs that we've heard this afternoon in different roles. What are their different roles? What is their motivation to embark on such a journey, on an entrepreneurial journey? And I'm happy to invite now speakers that you've already seen, Virginia, Valeska, and Alex here. We don't have round tables, we have square tables, but I think that doesn't make a difference, right? Please join me here. Thank you very much for agreeing. For agreeing to being part of this roundtable session. I was very happy to have such a positive vibe from all of you. You all said, yes, of course, we want to share our experience in your different roles as an entrepreneur yourself, as joining in different roles an already established company, and share this with this community, and maybe with this also motivate some of the young researchers in this room to understand there's different career paths. I'm sure we're going to talk about it. Staying in academia is one thing, but there's also very different roles outside of academia. Thank you very much already at this point. We heard what your companies are doing in a very short format, of course, but at this point, maybe you can briefly introduce yourself, all of you again, and more focus on what your relationship with microbiome is and where you see the beauty in microbiome research yourself. Virginia, would you want to?
Maybe I can start here.
Please.
So as I already introduced myself, I am a medical doctor. I am from Brazil. I am not from Switzerland. And I started my career in Brazil with clinical. After medical school and residence and specializations, I started participating from in a clinical study from Switzerland with a Swiss technology. And that's where, I mean, I did a specialization in pathologies of the lower genital tract. And whenever you decide to do such a specialization, it's because you already have this line of thinking in microbiology, in preventive medicine, in pathologies, what is the role of bacterial vaginosis, HPV, screening cervical cancer. So you are very oriented in this direction already. So I was already thinking about it, how to improve the treatments of recurrent infections, how to operate in the preventive medicine, not only in cervical cancer itself, but for the vaginal infections in general. And that's when I saw and then, because I did this specialization, and after I started participating in this clinical study of recurrent candidiasis and vaginal microbiome, so it became, for me, even more attractive to push in this direction. And I was very lucky because I could join a program I studied from Switzerland, from a company that was not only paying for the study, which is important, but they were very collaborative. And the professors in Brazil opened the doors for me to present as well. So I got really passionate about the vaginal microbiome and the potential as a potential tool in the preventive medicine, in optimizing the indications of probiotics. And that's how I got more oriented in this direction.
A very personal motivation.
Exactly.
And then also, I mean, you kind of mentioned it now, it's also a bit opportunistic. I mean, you kind of stumble from one role into the next one, and that's also where the beauty lies. Thank you very much. Should we go gentleman first?
Okay. Okay. So yeah, as you know, my name is Alex Sturm. I'm the chief scientist of the company. I was always very interested in science, obviously. So I did my PhD actually in Switzerland. I'm myself German. And I worked on virulence and Salmonella. So Salmonella is actually somebody that disrupts your microbiome. Not someone, but some entity that basically disrupts your microbiome in the gut. I was more interested on the non-growing states, on the antibiotic tolerant states of actually disruptors of microbiome. So as you know, the Cell is not really a microbiome company. We're more interested in determining susceptibility or resistance to antibiotics. But I mean, everything is kind of related to microbiome. When you have a sepsis case, for example, usually they come from urinary tract infections or from some leakage in the gut system. So microbiome definitely plays a role. Yes, so I
Thank you very much.
Found it very interesting.
Perfect. Valeska.
I actually stumbled into the microbiome because my interest is in how our immune system functions. And it was very interesting to learn that we've both been working on Mycobacterium tuberculosis. But the problem is with the drugs we have available in the market right now, antibiotics, strong small molecular inhibitors, sometimes what the doctor prescribes you is even worse than the disease. And what I find really interesting is that by better understanding microbiomes, and my interest for human health are oral to gut microbiome involving the whole cycle until the stool, can be used as a gentler thermostat to regulate the immune tone in our body in cases of allergy, in cases of too much inflammation or too little inflammation. So I think in that way we are really reaching into the future, into a more personalized medicine. And that is why I am a strong supporter of microbiome research.
Thank you very much, Valeska. Stumbling into something is probably a good kind of picture, right? It's what we often do during careers. And did you stumble into your project as well a bit? Or was it planned?
No.
When did the idea arise that you actually would like to become the entrepreneur?
No, it was not a plan, honestly, not at all. I always say that whenever someone asks me how, so you moved from a country to another, a totally different country, tropical
country. That's another level for you,
tropical
absolutely.
country.
Yeah.
And then I always say, no, the problem is not the moving from a tropical country to Switzerland. The problem is being a medical doctor and then you become a CEO. That's the whole thing.
Which might not be only restricted to medical doctors, but any of us scientists.
Any medical doctor, we are not, nobody's prepared to become a CEO.
Yeah.
That's the truth.
Yeah.
But a medical doctor, honestly, it's something totally different from it. And that's where I saw the challenge happening. And that's where I faced the difficulties but overcame, etc. But for sure, it was not planned.
Like so many things in life, right?
But then you have to take a decision, or you go for it, and you learn by doing, and your colleagues are normally very supportive. Once you decide to go for it, the people that believe on you will be there, your incubator, accelerator programs, etc., but not planned at all.
Thank you. But you still motivate people in the room to do the same thing, right? Thank you very much. Valeska, you joined as a program manager, project manager officer, and Alex, you as a chief scientific officer, so you were not...
Actually, senior scientist first. No.
First senior scientist, okay. So not in the entrepreneurial hat from the beginning. What made you join a startup? You could have joined any other company.
Well, I mean, maybe I was a little bit frustrated with my postdoc, so I was a postdoc after... I actually was 8 years in the US, so I did my PhD here, and then I was 8 years in the US, and I worked on tuberculosis. I was always fascinated with new projects and wanted always to build my own projects. And I worked on non-growing tuberculosis. So everybody who works on tuberculosis or knows tuberculosis is very slow-growing bacterium. I've actually worked on non-growing, so it's very hard. In terms of career, it's a little bit stupid, let's put it this way. But it was very interesting, and honestly, now I left this postdoc position 3 years ago. And now this publication from that postdoc was now published. So, okay, so there's no way that I could continue.
It takes time,
yeah,
right?
it takes some time. And once you leave, then anyway, it takes more time. But I wanted to continue science, and it was just pure luck that I basically got from 2 different people an email there in Resistel. They're looking for a senior scientist. And I just wrote them. I was basically at this point, okay, let's try, go back to Switzerland. And then there were several rounds of interviews. COVID actually happened, so that also delayed a little bit. I found that very interesting. So I was not so interested in, like entrepreneur or not entrepreneur or what kind of industry, academia. I was always project-driven. So I like the technology very much. So I don't know, I talked to a lot of people outside already, so I think a lot of people like the technology. It's a technology that works. It's also a challenge. When I joined, it was not clear that it will work. The clinical studies actually look quite nice. I cannot give more details on that, but it is a challenge, and also to see the entire journey so that you don't know that. I think it's what you said, you stumble into it. And then all of a sudden this comes and this comes and this comes and this comes. You realize, there's regulations. The regulations is much tougher in vitro diagnostic or the entire diagnostic.
And I actually don't have a clue about regulations, right?
Exactly, yeah. So you don't know any. I'm not the lead person in regulations, but you work with people. Engineering, I didn't have any idea, so we are very engineering heavy. You learn about data science, much more intense, like signal processing and all these things. So it's really fun to work with all these people with different expertises, and I didn't have that experience, honestly, in academia. So you always, not always, I think there are exceptions, but a lot of people have their projects, you're a little bit in your own niche, and here it's less yourself, it's more the team, and the team spirit is very important. So if you decide to go to leave academia, go for a startup where you have the feeling there is a team behind it. So that can also, because, like you trade a little bit more security in academia with something that is not secure at all. So you get a better contract on the paper. So
now we move into key take-home messages.
You basically,
what to do.
You don't have this, like next year you get, your postdoc another year.
Yeah.
You actually get a real contract, but the company attached to this contract might not exist next year, right? So that.
So what is more?
Yeah.
So you need to be comfortable to float, right? As long as you float and you don't sink, you're fine. Knowing that there's somewhere like the shore, right? Hopefully, So I think it's an experience, like it's a journey, and you do it with a couple of people, and you need to make sure that you like these people. You see them every day. You need to work with them. And maybe one other aspect which I really like, you get to talk to really important people. So we, like in the beginning, you talk to some people, but now you talk to big industry people and talk to CEOs and vice presidents, blah, blah, blah. And so that's also interesting to see how that
different world a bit.
Yeah, it's a very different world.
Yeah. And a very steep learning curve, I guess,
yes.
to be
so
ready for that.
I think the academic workspace is a bit different. So I worked on weekends in academia, but then you had like 2 hours where you didn't work during the week or something like this, right? So you have a very tough day, but it's over in the evening, and then you don't have to work on the weekend. So the days are fuller and more challenging. A lot of meetings, a lot of people from different areas, like you have external meetings. I think it's like a professorship. I mean, like people talk all the time. Yeah,
Perfect.
meetings.
Thank you so much, Alex. Valeska, I know you have been, after your PhD, also working in the tech transfer domain, knowledge and tech transfer. It was in Essen, right?
Exactly.
You did this. What made you move back into a more unstable position, so to say?
Actually, for me, it's a type of evolution. So after my postdoc, during my postdoc, I had my own frustrations. This wasn't so much about the growing conditions of the bacteria, but it was about you publish, and when do people benefit? What happens after? It's published, it's now in the general domain, no company has a competitive advantage. Who is going to use it? And when? How do we translate these insights into actually tangible benefits for mammals around the world, for our world, the cleanliness? So I have been searching for a way to matching my personality, contribute to that process. Because unlike Virginia, I don't like taking big risks. I am a very calculated, more introvert, more conservative person choosing. If I invest, I only take funds. So this is something where I am absolutely not the entrepreneurial type, but I do want to push this process. And I've been doing that by enabling, like you mentioned in the incubator, giving the skills, giving the vocabulary, telling people interested in starting up how to do that.
Yeah.
And now I'm supporting Yemi as his right hand in whatever difficult regulatory team building, kick-off presentations. A lot of process management needs to be done. And something that I would like to stress to this room, I was very lucky because part of this vocabulary was already given to me during my master's. I studied in the Netherlands, and there they actually were allowed with the Datenschutzgesetzverordnung to do interviews with alumni and figured out we are training scientists. The curriculum is 100% science, but only 30% stay in science. How are we serving the 70% of students that are going elsewhere? And they had developed different tracks for that, one of which was science-based business and research-based business, where you need at least 3 to 6 months to get a full overview of how to talk to corporate finance, how to support a marketing manager, how to deal with regulatory. So because I was given this vocabulary so early on, I could slide from fundamental science into the more and more business-oriented set without feeling like I stumbled and fell to my face. I just stumbled and got back up easy.
Yeah, very nice to see that you also pick up skills along the way, and at one point, magically they fit together again. You can suddenly use things again that you thought were maybe useless back.
So pick any associations that you would like to contribute to.
Thank you very much for highlighting this, absolutely. My next question is to you, Virginia. How did you find your co-founders, and how do you find people like Alex and Valeska joining you with their skills, supporting this entrepreneurial idea?
So, good question. And I take the opportunity to say that for anyone that is willing to have a company, to be an entrepreneur, it's very important to choose your co-founders very well. People that you would like to work with, that you will probably see a lot of times, and that has the same how can I say, the approach that you have. It's something that will make you feel comfortable working with that people, that they do not pass a wrong message, Quaker, or something that doesn't make you feel comfortable. It's really important because in the entrepreneur world, there are a lot of people that only think about getting benefits, and they are not very correct. And so this is important. Said that, in my case, I was lucky again to say that I was participating in this clinical study. So part of my team, including my CTO, were already working on the technology and already running the analysis, so they already lived in Switzerland. Part of my team as well are people from professors that became our key opinion leaders. The board came after with the incubator and the accelerator program. I got in contact with a lot of people here in Switzerland, in Europe in general, more specifically Europe and Switzerland, that already have this vibe of entrepreneur that was already used to this mindset, which was not my case. Yeah. I was the one learning more, and they had a lot of patience. So I was very lucky. That's how I got to know my co-founders, which is really important to choose it well.
It's a question that you hear often, how to find the right co-founders, how to build up a functioning team. Right?
I can share my experience. I was not very comfortable with some people in the beginning. I think it was the message that they were passing was not at all aligned with the message that the company should pass, especially because we are a women's health company. I mean, you are advocating for women's health. You have to be very careful on how you approach the problems of women, the taboos, the stigma, and you have to be very comfortable with your co-founders, for sure.
In general?
In general, especially
not restricted.
In my case, for women's health, I think it was
even more so.
Challenging to choose the right people.
Thank you very much. And I guess people who are interested from the audience to learn more about what a co-founder should bring and how to approach. Maybe also how you would have been like to approach by people who are interested are welcome to ask their questions to you.
Yes, I think that a co-founder should, when you think about your co-founder, in my case, I was very oriented to my area, and I had part of the co-founders and part of the board members brought a financial expertise, technology, statisticians, so we became a multidisciplinary team.
Great to hear. I haven't even used half of the question that I prepared, so you see there's really lots of questions in my head going on that I would like to ask to these people here in the front. But at this point, I would actually like to open up this discussion and also include your questions that you might have. You're, of course, free to ask them afterwards when they're still around, but please, now there's the possibility to ask your questions, whatever it might be it entrepreneurial related or whatever is of interest to you to ask to this set of panelists. Please, you use your microphone, you press the button, and you ask your question. Please go ahead.
Thank you. I want to ask what sort of funders you have. So is it the classical VCs that a lot of tech startups have, or does it come from the bigger pharma players, or what's kind of the mix?
Can you say it again? We hardly heard it.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, please.
I wanted to ask what sort of funders you have, what sort of investors you have in your respective companies. Is it the classical VC sort of setup that people have in tech startups, or is it the bigger pharma companies, or who's the sort of person investing in these three startups?
So, in the seed funding round, I think it's in Switzerland you have actually a good community of business angels. So these are usually richer, bit older people already who had a career in pharma or basically they have some private money. They invest, and seed funding is usually not that big, but the return of their investment would be very high. And you have also VCs quite a bit. So this is basically where we are right now, and then you get the big industry later in stage. We are considered we are medtech, basically medtech startup, but we are more considered in this biological field, not so much in the technology. So we are talking quite a bit to diagnostic companies, pharma companies, and these things.
Please feel free to also answer from your perspective. Because I saw you, Virginia, saying, not necessarily.
No, I think that, as Alex mentioned very wisely, there is the business angels and the VCs, but the family offices. But the one challenge that I see, and I think a lot of people see this challenge as well, some colleagues, is that you have, the communities are not that big as we think when you go for it. And there is depending on how much you are raising, there is a limbo of people that, this ticket size is too small, but this for me is too big. I also fundraised, I also had this experience. We are currently fundraising, by the way.
Always fundraising.
Yeah, always. But there is certain amounts that people are not very safe, so it's too small for them, and they came as private investors, or not at all, and the VCs for them is too small. It has a certain amount that there is like a limbo, a gap that you have to fit in that investor, and it's tricky. It's challenging.
Investors are not always your friends, also, right? So it's a little bit of a game, strategy game.
Yeah, definitely. More questions, please, Natasha.
Hello. My question is about the transfer from academia to startup. What particular skills were useful from your academic background, and what skills were useless?
Well,
beautiful question. Thank you. Who wants to? Please, Valeska, go ahead.
absolutely useless is my fascination for the science behind the facts, because right now, timelines matter. I'm no longer getting paid to figure out the full picture. What was very useful is in running my studies, I coordinated with a Max Planck Institute and 3 additional research groups to get pathogens from all of them and funnel them within the same 2-hour window to infect them. And this type of project management skill where you are keeping an eye on timelines, the same time as quality, and try and keep everything as cheap as possible, so keep your mind on the money, that really translates well for me to managing business processes.
By my side, I think what was very useful is the fact that I know very well the problems in women's health, since I am a gynecologist. The unmet medical needs, I was aware of it from my own experience with the patients. So I think I can say I know very well who am I talking to, who is the people that I want to help, and what do they absolutely need, and what is the challenge behind those problems, the science behind those problems. I will speak about something that I am comfortable about.
Absolutely.
Speaking.
And starting with the problem and then develop the solution, and not the other way around, is what we often do.
And giving applications for things that already exist.
Exactly.
We already have microbiome tests in the market, but sometimes you do nothing with those tests. So why are people paying for it? You have to give applicability to your test as well, and help the doctor behind. I mean, not only another test for them to open and show the clients. You have to give application to it.
Thanks a lot. Do we have another minute or two for maybe 2-3 minutes more questions from your side? If not, I would try to ask my last question. That is really of big interest to me, also personally. What do you say are the advantages and the disadvantages of starting a microbiome company or joining a microbiome company here in Switzerland? I mean, where do you see roadblocks? Where do you see also a lot of support? Please, Valeska. You're burning, I see.
So I moved to Lausanne in November, and the first roadblock was finding housing. Transferring all of your assets from one to another country. Took a new level when I did it to a non-EU country. So take time and plan whenever you're emigrating, a percentage of your time for that. In Switzerland, the climate, the people that are around here, the amount of investors, I see it as a huge, huge benefit for the company. So it is worth it.
Yeah, I think it depends a bit like how you're structured. If you're like a fighter for yourself, then don't do the startup. You need to find your team. I think we all agree. You need to be comfortable in the team and maybe play yourself a bit in the background, right? So not always put yourself first. I think what you're saying is right. The investor climate is very nice when you start. When you basically progress, there is a little bit of a gap.
Yeah.
You usually have good initial funding, but then I think in AMR we always talk about push and pull incentives and these kind of things. So you have your grants and stuff that help you with a small team. Usually also the salaries are not that high, so don't expect going to a startup and get 150K right away or something like this. So this is a problem basically to get to the stage, especially for a company like us where we develop a product. So you need actually a long breath, and that's difficult. Like as I actually also agree, fundraising all the time. So it's not on me so much, I support that, but it's on our CEO, Danuta, who is basically fundraising all the time, talking to tons of people. And the climate right now is not great.
In general, not only in Switzerland.
It's not a Swiss problem, it's a worldwide problem. Yes. So I still would say it's fun to work in a startup where you learn a lot and it qualifies you long-term definitely to be a more interesting candidate for corporates if you want to go this pathway. I think I worked many years in the US. There was constantly back and forth industry in academia, which is not the case in Europe. But I think in the US there is much more flexibility, and every MIT student had a company, and it's like it was. Yes. So this entrepreneurial stuff is nice. I couldn't really understand it back in the day, but now it's fascinating. You also get adrenaline because you need to motivate each other. You need to be on the same page. I think it's a lot of fun. So if you're okay with this situation, maybe next end of the year you don't have this job, but be comfortable you find another job, right?
Thank you very much. Anything you want to add from your perspective?
I think just completing what Alex said and taking your question again, in the microbiome field and related to investors, as he was explaining, a lot of people doesn't know really about microbiome, unfortunately. A lot of people doesn't know what it is. And then the previous challenge you have in the fundraising before even getting to the amount of money you need is to explain what it is, the science behind, and what is the importance of it, which problem you are trying to solve, why microbiome is involved, why should I use microbiome to solve, and what is the outcomes and expected outcomes of what you are doing. And also put the numbers in the table, because that's what they like. So
absolutely.
And then you had this black sheep, the Theranos. I don't know if people know about this diagnostic, so there's also some hesitation.
I see. So a lot of challenges ahead of you, but still overall take-home message. Do it. It's fun, after all, right? Thank you very much. With this, I'd like to end this session and hand over to the WINS team again to round off this conference and this afternoon. Thank you very much to all of you.